This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. If my calculations are correct, this is show 342. I can tell you with great certainty that this is the Friday, June 8th, 2018 edition, the Triple Crown Justified Belmont Stakes 150 edition of the show. Peter Thomas Fornatel back with you inside the Brooklyn bunker, which is not haunted, popular belief notwithstanding. And I'm joined today not from Planet Texas, but from a random hotel room somewhere in Manhattan, hoping not to get shot down by dodgy hotel Wi-Fi. He's the people's champ, Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
What's going on? Yeah, I'm hotel rooms are so small in New York. Like, no matter what, it always feels like you could touch walls. It's not as small as that, like, studio suite I rented that one time before we went to Monmouth, like 2 years ago, and I, like, stayed in this random hotel one night, and it was literally the smallest hotel room I've ever seen in my entire life.
Closet. There are closet-shaped hotel rooms in New York. No tangents on today's show. I'm sure we'll get to a tangent or two because we're us and that's what we do. But we are looking to bust through the stakes races on the Belmont card in 30 minutes. Just have to do it this way. We tried to do a longer edition of the show yesterday. A little bit of dodgy racetrack Wi-Fi problems prevented that from happening. This is the time we have. We're pretty much pedal to the metal other than that. And we'll begin with the easy goer. I'm just giving a quick thought on this one, JK, which is I saw Breaking the Rules, maiden win. It was one of the nights I was working on at the races in the UK. My co-analyst very astutely pointed out the amazing pedigree and said, why is this horse 10-1? At which point I said, oh, well, you know, McGahee often gives them one. I'm not sure if you want to bet that. Not sure that's value. Of course, the horse gets up and wins, comes back and wins again, now making the stakes debut. Just looks like one who's getting better and I think could take some beating at a decent price in the easy goer. Do you have a quick thought on this one?
Yeah, no, I saw Breaking the Rules. I thought the race definitely was one to consider, but yeah, you know, I'm not convinced that wasn't the place you wanted to be last time when he was down on the inside. I think Mask is going to have a nice comeback here, back in Chad Brown's backyard. The horse ran a huge figure earlier this year in the Mucho Macho Man. Obviously had an excuse in the Pat Day Mile with the slop. Was kind of out of the race early. Shows back up here in this spot. I think that one could be a little bit tough. Noticed online the horse is working with Backyard Heaven, which is one of the older horses that I'm really interested in moving forward this year. And I think Mask is going to be tough in this spot.
That was the angle last time as well when I thought he looked about even money to beat that field. Ended up incredibly weak in the market, and they knew non-effort, as you pointed out. I'll take a look. If he's stronger in the market, maybe I'll take a second look back at him and consider at least a one-way saver with him on top of Breaking the Rules. Let's move on to our first graded stake, and it's a grade 1 at that. It's the Ogden Phipps. I'll let you start here, JK.
Well, I'm guilty. I've actually tried to Twitter this, and I cannot find out what the intentions are for Ivy Bell or American Gal. Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I think American Gal is Bed of Roses. I think Ogden Phipps is where Ivy Bell is going to end up. Not certain of that, but I am pretty sure this is going to be Ivy Bell's spot, and I'm guessing that we're both going to be a little bit interested in her at a square price.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get 12-1. It was nice for our friend David Aragona to try to tease us a little bit with that. I think that once American Gal scratches here, that Ivy Bell will come down quite a bit, but I still think she's definitely one to consider. Abel Tasman is a little bit interesting for me. A little bit interesting on what to do with her. You know, I remember in some of the post-race interviews with Justify winning the Derby, Baffert kept pointing out that he was like frustrated that they weren't winning any races and over the weekend, and he was starting to feel like they were having bad luck. And I remember him saying he thought Abel Tasman couldn't lose, but then she was really kind of bad. She didn't have a great trip, so I'm really curious what's going to happen with her. She obviously likes Belmont. She ran well at Belmont, but I'm going to center most of my play around Ivy Bell. I think she's an improving type. Third time with Todd. She ran well last time. I think the stretch out won't be a problem for her. I think she's going to be tough.
Abel Tasman feels to me like one to take on, and if she runs big and runs well, I'd keep my eyes peeled for the rest of the day for one of those Baffert wins everything New York Saturdays we've seen recently on Travers Days and Belmont Days. That would be my extra note in that race. But I'll be betting Ivy Bell, and we'll have to see what happens there. Let's move on to race 4, another grade 1. This time we're talking about the Acorn return to the races of Monomoy Girl. And just to be difficult to you, JK, I'm going to steal your pick here. No, I can't do that. I'll let you give out Talk Move to me.
No, actually, I think Monomoy Girl can't really lose this spot. I think
Really?
Talk Move for me is – I think this is a great opportunity for like an ice-cold exacta with Talk Vuv to me running second. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Talk Vuv obviously will appreciate the extra ground. The one-turn mile seems to kind of fit exactly what it is that she wants to do. She was involved pretty early there with Mia Mischief, who's turned out to be a pretty good one in her own right. I just think Monomoy Girl is going to be too tough here. I think that when you have a horse who is forwardly placed, who ran so well on that big stage of the mile and an eighth, and now cuts back to the one-turn mile, I mean, she's going to be tough. Right, coming back in 5 weeks, she's been working well. I just don't really see how they beat her.
Interesting. I don't have your level of enthusiasm. I still think she's the most likely winner. Talk Vuv to me, improving in receipt of 8 pounds. I think her best days are ahead of her. I'm not saying Monomoy Girls aren't, but I just feel like this is a good shot at the odds to take a chance with Talk Vuv to me, though I do like your idea of a 3-7 saver and maybe a 3-all-7 saver in the trifecta as well. With that, let's move on to the Brooklyn speed round here. I told you for the Belmont edition of this year's DRF Players Podcast. Brooklyn going 1.5 miles on the dirt. What did you come up with?
You know, I wanted to kind of lean on the old boy here. This is kind of what he loves to do, and an opportunity. You know, this feels like just the kind of race that was designed for him. He's a kind of plodding, methodical type that just kind of keeps coming at you. But I'm interested in outplay a little bit. I think he could be interesting, kind of getting his chance at running long for the first time. He's a Bernardini out of his Stormcat mare. Todd obviously has a lot of success in the Belmont with these 1.5 mile races with 3-year-olds. So what's wrong with a 1.5 mile race for a 4-year-old? So I think outplay could be tough here. It's Rapoli's home track. Obviously means a lot to him to get a win here in this race. I'm going to try to do some things with outplay. Obviously, hard study and opportunity make a little bit of sense. But I'm going to try to get something going here with outplay.
I'm surprised you left the winner out of your dissertation on that race.
Who do you like? You like War Story?
War Story, I think, looks just really, really tough and in form here. I have respect for the horses you mentioned, especially Opportunity, but I think War Story is the most likely winner, and I think most of my horizontal action will center around the 9 with a little bit on the 2 in this race. Do you have a knock on War Story? I feel like he's a horse you've liked in the past.
No, not necessarily a knock. I just, obviously you look back to the Brooklyn last year where he ran well in this spot. Ran really well in this spot. But I'm very underwhelmed by him. I'm obviously a fan of Jorge Navarro and what he can get done, but I just, for whatever reason, I'm just not enthusiastic about it, and especially at 2-1 on the morning line. It feels like he's going to be a little bit overbet.
It's possible, but I think that he's just in the spot where I think he's really doing what he wants to do, and I think there's some very encouraging form signs even in the last couple of running lines. We will see on Saturday. Let's move on to the Jaipur. Goes as race 6. What did you come up with in here?
Well, I came up with long on value. Oh, he's not running in here.
Are you questioning? Are you questioning our partners at the decision making?
No, not at all. I'm just saying that he's the best turf sprinter. So, did you see my tweet last night about I challenged the Matisses to a match race with Panty Price?
Was this on Twitter? You did this?
Oh, I think so.
You're out of here.
Maybe it was a dream, but I'm pretty sure I tweeted it. We should get a racetrack to set up a match race. We'll just all show up, and we'll get Duke and Paul to fire through the windows that day, and we'll get Marshall and Clay to show up and fire. So it'll be like that our on-track handle will be good. They can just use the takeout for the purse, and let's just do that. It'll be fun.
Like Bing Crosby all over again in JK's dreams. All right, let's talk about the horses who are actually running in this race. What are you thinking here?
I think Conquest Tsunami's had some really big races down the hill his last two with big figures. I think that he's one shipping out east that could be tough. The other one that kind of caught my attention in here was Disco Partner. I know you remember we played that pick 5 at Keeneland when we were against Disco Partner because he was drawn way outside and was first off of a break and all of those things. Well, now all of those things are out the window. He's back here. And I think that he's one that definitely could run well as well. This is kind of a spready race for me too. Stormy Liberal, I think, is one you have to consider, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint champion. I thought Pockets Change for Jason Service made a little bit of sense. Jason Service is kind of like he's the turf sprint master as it seems, and I'm gonna be spread a little bit here in this spot, and obviously the pick 6 starts here, so that will always make it interesting.
I definitely like the idea of spreading, getting alive to a lot of these. Of course, this type of race, very often a laboratory for chaos. But I like Disco Partner and will be pressing and potentially betting to win. I just think he's laid out for the race, and I think it sets up all right for him. And I definitely don't want to – when you spread and a lower price wins – sometimes that's going to be a lousy feeling, but if you bet it correctly, it can still be the best result for you in the big picture of life. That's what I'm sort of hoping with Disco Partner in the Jaipur. Does that make sense to you? Any objections to that wagering plan?
No, it makes total sense. I get that. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, like I said, this race is gonna be probably the only wager that will be placed here is gonna be the pick 6 for me, and so I think I'll be spread pretty far. There's not too many horses in here I feel like I could toss. I don't really need Frisky Magician. I don't really want Pure Sensation. But the rest of them, I feel like I'd have to consider, even holding gold for the Cassies.
Would you press Disco Partner?
No, I wouldn't. I like him. I have him as an A horse here. If there's a horse that was going to be pressed for me, it'd probably be Conquest Tsunami. I love the fact that the horse had shown talent when he was with Cassie, and then shows up with Peter Miller and starts running huge numbers down the hill. And the great part about this race is it's at 6, right? A lot of these turf sprints we see on these big days are at 5 or 5.5. Well, the cutback from 6.5 to 6 isn't as drastic as that 5.5 is, where I sometimes have a problem taking those types of horses. So I think Conquest Tsunami could be tough. And Peter Miller has run, let's remember Roy H. had his coming out party. If it wasn't last year, it was the year before I think it was last year at Belmont on this day. So he could definitely get one on a plane to run well.
He can ship and win. Let's move on to race 7, the Woody Stevens. I'll give you my thoughts through the lens of the pick 6. I think you can get away with 2 here, JK. Strike Power is a horse I would have liked for this spot minutes after they crossed the line in the Florida Derby. It just seems like this cutback is going to agree with him. But I ain't leaving out number 3, Engage, an improver for Chad Brown, who also looks very dangerous. I just feel like I know you can make cases for other horses. Maybe I could see using Madison's Luna as some type of B or C. But on the A-line level, I'm 3-12, 12-3 all day here.
Yeah, I like the 12 as well. Strike Power will definitely be an A horse for me. The other A horse that I like is drawn right next to him, and that's World of Trouble for Jason Service. That horse ran a huge number at Tampa, and then had some excuses in the Tampa Bay Derby. Now just cutting back, I think he's going to be tough at what should be a nice price. Maybe 4 or 5 to 1. I think he might get ignored a little bit here. I'm not going to fall for the promises fulfilled cutback. I get it. I think a lot of people will probably consider that, and I just don't think. I know that he's fast, going 2 turns and kind of like the speed and fade type. So you would think that the cutback's going to work, but it feels like to me he's just going to be. It's going to be a little bit sharp for him. Maybe like a 1-turn mile would be something that would get me going about him. Kanthaka is another one that I'll probably use a little bit, but I think I'm going to build a lot of my plays and tournament type of stuff around World of Trouble.
Makes sense. So you've now picked Jason Service in 2 races in a row. Any progress on getting the middle-aged white guy wig to match your silver-haired Baffert one?
Is that what he's rocking? He's rocking. That's the cut he's got.
I think I'm half guessing. I'm dimly remembering him for photos. I've never hung out with the man, but I'm taking a guess at the expense of attempting to make a silly joke here in the Woody Stevens. Let's go on. We're moving on to the pick four. We've had a lot of questions about how to play the pick four. We've got about 15 minutes left. So feel free to delve into a little bit of wagering strategy. We also probably don't want to leave short shrift for this Belmont Stakes, because there's some really interesting questions when it comes to that race. Of course, we've been talking about it for weeks as well. Anyway, the Just a Game is where it all kicks off. Looks like a deep and competitive field to me. I went first last time. You go first here. Who's going to be on your pick sixes and pick fours?
Sometimes it's easy in these spots just to if you just look at how many children with Chad Brown. I'll take those two. That's all you need. So, I like a Raving Beauty. Obviously, I was against her last time. She ran huge. I think Off Limits is an extremely talented horse. She just kind of always finds herself in some sneaky spots and trouble and pace compromise. I think she'll be tough in here. Off Limits is going to be my main play. She's going to be the type of filly that I'm going to use, or mare that I use on all my contest stuff. I think she'll be an okay price, but I'm not going to ignore Lull and Proctor's Ledge. Lull ran that huge race at Gulfstream, and the Honey Fox, the fast pace, shook loose. Tactical here obviously has to deal with La Cornell, but La Cornell hasn't been ridden forward like she was in 2017. So I'm not sure what the plan is with her. And then Proctor's Ledge is an improving type. I think she was probably where she wanted, on the good part of the track at Churchill. But the fact that, we talked about Brendan Walsh being concerned about the ground, and she still ran well. Maybe we can expect that she's going to run better on a firmer surface. If he was at least concerned and she kind of still did her thing, I think she could be tough here. She was always a talented 3-year-old, and she finally found her 4-year-old form last time at Churchill.
I wouldn't leave her out. I definitely think this race is more complicated than the two Chads, though I could see a case for pressing both of them. Proctor's Ledge would have to be on my tickets. On Leave would have to be on my tickets. I think she kind of projects the best trip the way this looks to me like it's going to shake out. I definitely get Lull as the pace play, but I think at this grade 1 level with this group, I think somebody's going to run her down. I think On Leave has almost as good a chance as anybody. She would be – I sort of have co-top selections, but let's just for the exercise give a top selection in each race so we can claim it as a winner and brag on Twitter and all that fun stuff. For me, the top pick, On Leave. For you, it's going to be one of the Chads. How do you separate them?
Off Limits for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've always kind of liked what she does. She's 3 for 5 at Belmont with 3 wins, 5 wins at the distance. I think this is going to fit her perfectly.
All right, next we move on to the Met Mile. Super exciting race. Maybe it didn't come together the way we were all dreaming when we were thinking Army Mule and Backyard Heaven were all going to end up in here a few weeks ago, but it's still a really cool race with a very live favorite. I am going to take in some of my wagers a little bit of a contrarian view here and make sure to mess around with some prices on my top level. Warriors Club, to me, has outrun odds twice in a row at 20-1, and I think has an opportunity to do so again at a similar mutual. This is a tough horse. This is a fighter, not far behind the best of these on figures. In fact, figures to be a massive price in the race, and I could see getting a good trip. Warriors Club will be on tickets, and it could be a little sharp for Good Samaritan, but I've not used him other days where I thought that would be the case and seen him run too well. This is a horse I've just followed for too long to have him win a race like this and not be using on an A-type level. I'm going to try to get things done with 5 Good Samaritan and 9 Warriors Club in the Met Mile. How do you see it, JK?
Well, I see you playing multi-race bets by yourself tomorrow is what I see. Because if those two win, I lose. I'm really, obviously, I respect Mind Your Biscuits and what he did in the last race at Dubai with that on that racetrack and being inside speed bias, and he circled the field and came flying late. He's doing well from all accounts. I think he's going to run really well. So obviously, Mind Your Biscuits is going to be an A type for me. But the other A horse that's a little bit of a price that I'm excited about betting is McCracken. Ran really well at Churchill last time. He's second off a layoff for Ian Wilkes, who I think we all kind of know excels, in the second and third start of a cycle rather than the first one. So if he ran that big that day off of since October, I think he's going to run really big in here. I think that he'll be a nice price. He's been kind of asking for this one-turn mile situation for some time. He finally got it last time, and he'll get it again here today. I think McCracken could be tough. And then I'm also going to mess around with Awesome Slew a little bit. I wasn't training all that great going into the last race, but this horse is something special. When you look down through his PPs, you look at the horses he's run second to or third to. It's a nice little group. Limousine Liberal, Backyard Heaven. Backyard Heaven. He scratched out of that race. Army Mule, Battle of Midway, Dre Fong, Mind Your Biscuits, More Spirit. Some really talented horses in there, and I think Awesome Slew is one that you definitely want to consider.
He's a tough horse. I certainly wouldn't mind a little Awesome Slew and Mind Your Biscuits on those tickets as well. Just trying to give some horses to juice up prices, especially verticals. But like I said, I need to have a little bit with either of them winning for the various reasons stated above. Let's move on to the Manhattan. Grade 1 goes as race 10. You talked about potentially staking your contest life this weekend on a double between the Manhattan and the Belmont Stakes. So with that thought in mind, I'll let you go first here.
Yeah, I mean, my top two choices are going to be Sadler's Joy and Beach Patrol. But I'm going to also try to get creative here with Channel Maker a little bit. I thought,
geez, same three. What are you reading my mail?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wouldn't read your mail for the Met Mile. Those horses that have no shot.
We need to go back and we need to head-to-head in that race. We need to head-to-head McCracken against one of mine if we have time at the end. If not, we'll do it on.
I'll give you both of yours.
Done.
Home and hosed.
Yeah, I mean, come on. That's just crazy talk. All right, back to the Manhattan. We like the same three horses. We like Beach Patrol. Obviously he ran best I don't know about obviously. In my opinion, he ran best in the Breeders' Cup turf. Loads of excuses last time between the turf condition and the race being too short. Probably laid out to have a monster performance here. Lots of other speed in the race. Should set things up beautifully for the Sadler's Joy late run. I'll let you make the case for the other one or add anything that I missed on the two top ones here.
Yeah, no, I just think the Channel Maker is one that has it just always kind of seems to have a little bit of an excuse. Bad rides here, wide there, biased here, biased there. Obviously, he's trained by Belmont, who can get one ready to run along on the turf, and then Jose shows up here. He's just one of those horses that in these spots where he doesn't have the big name like Beach Patrol and Sadler's Joy, and he's not trained by Chad Brown, and he didn't ship over from Europe, and he's not a Todd Pletcher. I think he just will get ignored a little bit, and I think that you'll get close to that 20-1, 18-1, 17-1, and he wins by a length, flashing late, and you all think, oh, why didn't I use that one? I'm not going to make that mistake. I think he's got a good shot. Obviously, the other two are the ones that I think are the most likely winners, but I think Channel Maker can definitely get it done.
Yeah, I almost feel, I think I described him to Sean Borman when talking about the race it might be a little harsh, but I think it kind of fits in another weird way, like a poor man's Sadler's Joy. Like you could just see some set of circumstances where this horse just gets up at a silly number. We've seen it plenty of times in this race with the motion winner, Slumber. We've seen plenty of times where this race looked like it really narrowed down, where you see a chaotic result. I want to cover it. To be clear, Channel Maker more of an underneath horse, a little bit on top. The other two look like you could nail them in for the pick six for me. One other thing I'll mention, and then I do want to get to the Belmont after you have a chance to react to this comment. If Chad Brown's winning everything, if he's in like super form, I may have to use at least defensively this Robert Bruce, who was visually very impressive last time. I feel like looking at the body of work, I definitely prefer those others more. Only 3-1 on the morning line. Where do you stand quickly with Robert Bruce?
Oh yeah, he's got a definitely one you have to consider. If Chad's running on the green stuff in New York, you typically need to consider it. So I like the horse. He's drawn well. He's going to save ground. He'll get cover and make one run. I didn't probably mention him, but he's definitely one that I'll use. One Go All Go is another one that I'll probably use. We talked about that being loose on the front end. I don't know why I'm being so stubborn about High Happy, but I just am. I don't know why. I can't even. If you asked me, I wouldn't be able to answer it. But he's run well in his last two. But I'm just waiting for him to come back to earth. He's been really good. So yeah, Robert Bruce is definitely one that you'd want to consider.
Hi, Happy, super talented. I'm a huge fan. If I did something spready using the likes of Robert Bruce and any others in here beyond the top two, really, I'd probably want to throw him in. But my idea is strong A's with Sadler, Beach Patrol, mix in Channel Maker a little, and probably my gut is in the picks is to let those other horses beat me unless there's a way I can, get alive on like a C type line if it narrows down enough the rest of the way. Haven't done the full job on that. Okay, here it is. The Belmont Stakes, JK. Is Justify going to become the 13th American Triple Crown winner on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think so. I think he is. I think for all the reasons we've kind of discussed over the last 5 weeks, he's talented. He's tactical. He's a big forward type of horse who I think is always, that's the kind of horse you want going the 1.5 miles on that big track. When you walk out on the apron the first time at Belmont and you look out on that track, I mean, it is like enormous compared to any other racetrack that you'll go to, obviously. And I just think that it's going to fit him. I think that he's drawn inside, which is fine. He's going to pop out of there and go on with it from there. Obviously, the connections need to keep in mind that at one point he did have gate issues. Doesn't seem like those are issues anymore. I think he's going to be extremely tough here. And the other part of the equation for me is that I think that Hofburg is probably going to be one of the most overbet horses in this year. I hope he runs third and
Did
second.
you not watch the Kentucky Derby, JK?
Yeah, I saw him closing into a suicidal pace in the slot.
How about the fact that he couldn't run on the far turn because he was stuck in and among horses, and he's a stayer who was ridden poorly, dropped out the back, so basically didn't have an opportunity to run until the stretch.
Completely overbet.
Well, listen, I think the horse is about a 4-1 chance. I think he's going to be about 4-1. So I'm not like super excited about betting him. In picks, for me, he's still an absolute must-use. I'm just going to say it's going to pay to take the negative view of Justify, pari-mutually speaking. I think the horses who realistically can upset him include Hofburg and Tenfold at the top of the list, and maybe a little bit of Vino Rosso, and maybe even like a half a penny of Noble Indy, just on the thought that the horse is going to be 30-odd to 1 and could really blow up the bank. I get it with Justify. The value isn't there for me. I think it's a little bit different, too, for you and what you're doing in the contest. I don't think a lot of contest players will be going strong on Justify. The vibes, despite the awesome workouts, I just feel like the general vibes among, like, contest player intelligentsia don't seem to be as drilled into Justify as they are for you. So I almost feel like in the contest environment, you're going to get an overlay on Justify. So I'll just ask you point blank. Will you be stone cold to him on the end in the contest? Will you be stone cold alone to him in the picks?
Yeah, no, I definitely will in the picks and stuff like that. I wish I had a stronger opinion in the turf in the Manhattan to lead into Justify, because I could, mess around with some double situations there. I think it's going to be, I don't know, I'll play around with it, but I'm not sure I'm going to have the confidence I can lock up the turf into Justify for still a pretty good return. So I'll have to see what happens there. Obviously, I have to see where I'm at on the leaderboard. I have to see where everyone else is at on the leaderboard to have an idea of what strategy I want. But I can assure you that I'm not going to keep my money into the last race, because that's the strategy I'm supposed to do.
You're not going to hold money till then. You're saying I missed the last thing you said. Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah. There's some criticism about the Derby thing, how I played the double instead of waiting until the last race so I could know what I needed to get with me.
Yes.
And
you're not going to do that.
No, if I can turn Justify into an even money shot when he's going to be 1-2 in the tote, and all I have to do is hook up some horses before him in the Manhattan, I'm going to try to do that. So it just depends. It all depends how the rest of the day goes, how today goes, how Sister Charlie runs. If Sister Charlie wins, it'll be safe to assume that JK is doing okay in the contest. So we'll see.
I like it. Different views in a lot of these key races. It's going to be super fun. We'll have weeks to talk about it and dissect it. I wish we could go longer. we're going to have to go 2 minutes longer because I got to ask you about this pace scenario. The presence of Restoring Hope. The Mike Repoli quotes the draw about, didn't say it out now, but almost implying that Noble Indy was a rabbit for Vino Rosso. What do you think is going to happen with the pace, especially with Justify at the rail? Is Mike just going to go on with it from there, or is there some other weird machinations happening here?
Yeah, I mean, if Noble Indy does, I mean, that's fine. Like, they send him out there on a kamikaze mission, and they send him to the front. Rabbits usually clear the field. They don't just, like, it's not like they're going to, like, break him out of there and just kind of, like, sit him on Justify's, throat latch, right? They're going to send him out of there. He'll clear. Mike will get Justify off the rail. It's a long run to the first turn, and he'll end up in the 2-path if that's what they want to do. Or if Justify breaks, he'll just go on with it.
What's Restoring Hope doing in this race?
I guess the horse deserved. I don't know.
You can't even, I mean, he's clearly got to be, there's got to be some sort of pace angle that they entered him. Maybe it was draw dependent. Maybe it was the idea of Justify drew outside or something to have Restoring Hope as a target he could run at just to set like an even pace. One thing, another negative about Justify for me, I didn't really get into it. We've talked about it in so many other forums, but he hasn't run efficiently. He's been very slow at the end of the last 2 races. Maybe they like the idea of let this other horse run evenly, set the pace, let Justify sit off him, and then just take over and power home. And he's going to have to run more efficiently if he's going to win. He's not going to get away with the stretch runs of the last 2 races. So maybe that was the idea, but then maybe that idea is out the window with the horse breaking the rail. It just feels to me like the move is for him just to go on with it. And if somebody like Noble Indy wants to go on a suicide mission, you let him and you sit off. But the Restoring Hope thing throws me off completely, I will admit. And clearly, I think it's the only time in the 3 years you've been on the podcast, JK, that you've been speechless when I asked you a question as you were when I asked about what Restoring Hope was doing in the ring.
Yeah, it feels like owner picked the spot, right?
Could be. That could be. But I mean, I would think that particular trainer, your friend with the silver hair, would have the clout to veto something like that if it wasn't something that he wanted on some level. But we'll know a lot more Saturday night.
And remember, this is the horse. I think it's owner picked the spot. This is the horse that Baffert considered on Wood Memorial Day running in the Bayshore, right? The 7 furlong 3-year-old race. Then ran him in the Wood Memorial, and then promptly cut him back to the Pat Day Mile, and now he's going to run him a mile and a half. Like it feels like owner picked the spot.
Could be.
But
I just think anyway, I don't want to get too in the weeds on that because we are out of time. Do you have another quick thought on the Belmont before? I just want you to run down some of the horses that you like for today, Friday, in case folks are going to be listening live or listening quickly, because I know you've done a lot of work on this card.
Yeah, so real quick, here are the underneath horses that I would consider using tomorrow in the Belmont. Little Vino Rosso, Little Noble Indy, and Free Drop Billy are the kind of horses that I want underneath. Obviously Hofberg, but he's the obvious one. Those are the other 3. I think Vino Rosso could really run well. I think Noble Indy could run well if he's ridden to win rather than any other nonsense. Today, I think that
Sister Charlie you mentioned.
Yeah, I love Sister Charlie. Going to her last race, I remember they interviewed Chad when he ran 1, 2, 3 in the Ginny Wiley. They interviewed Chad and said that Chad said, I think that this is going to be the best for 4-star Crook for the distance. I think Sister Charlie might need this race because she needs a little bit longer. Well, she's getting a little bit longer. I think she's going to be extremely tough in there. I think that Joking and Whitmore going 6.5 with some speed in here to close into. I think both of them are live. And the last one that I liked today was I think that I think American Gal is as much as I'd like to try to beat her. I think she'll be tough, especially if Ivy Bell doesn't show up here.
All right, that's it. That's all the time we have. We're over time, actually, for the truncated edition. Folks can hit us on Twitter. Apologies we didn't get to more of your excellent Belmont questions. If you want more on the Belmont and the Pick 4, check out the webinar I did with Mike Beer and Andy Beyer. You can catch that drf.com/YouTube. Want to thank you, JK. Want to thank our production team for working with us producers Craig and AJ, Willie Nile, and Travis Stone as well for help with the intro. I've got a rough cut to watch. My name's Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your Belmont Stakes and potentially Triple Crown winning photos.